Now let's look at the argument in brief so that you will get the overall picture of the paper. Now remember, our question is, what determines the competitiveness of law firms and investment banks as they go around looking for mergers and acquisition mandates? And particularly in our paper, mandates coming from Chinese companies. Now, what we find in our paper are that there's this tension naturally between large elite international financial center based law firms and investment banks, and you will see some examples of those in the following slides, and the smaller advisors who are often not located in international financial centers, but who might be located very close to the clients they're advising. So remember that a mergers and acquisitions deal is about one company looking to acquire or merge with another company. So given that one company might be based in Beijing and another in Mexico City, where are their advisors located, and how can smaller advisors in China or in Mexico City hope to compete with those large advisors located in London and New York? And what we find in the paper is that many of the traditional things you would think determines an advisor's competitiveness, like the number of staff they have, where the staff were educated, how much money they have, and so forth, are not as important as other factors that we uncover in this study. And we particularly find three factors which are rather surprising, both to academics and practitioners. The first factor is legal complexity. We find that an international financial center can help these advisors win business in foreign jurisdictions simply by the quality, the scope, the scale of their financial law. Such financial law allows these advisors to structure contracts in a particular way which is unique to these deals. So given that you might have a very complicated transaction structure, it's not possible to use local law, Mexican law, in the example that I was giving, rather than UK law, which is extremely complicated and versatile to allow for things such as complex securitization, the partition and allocation of risk, and so forth. And what we note in the paper is that this legal complexity actually represents a positive externality. Of course, you are familiar with the arguments that too complicated financial law is bad, both for customers and potentially even for the advisors. But what we find is that rather than imposing negative externalities or costs on these market participants, there is a positive side or positive portion of this externality which can be used by advisors to go out and win mandates across borders. The second factor that we find is, of course, advisors' attempts to differentiate their service offerings in the presence of these large global players. Now, local advisors have always touted their ability to know local market conditions better, customer focus, the ability to really know how the company works and so forth. But what we find is that even the large players also use differentiation, and in some ways we see throughout time different advisors copying each other to move away from the pack in order to try and provide a unique service offering to their Chinese customers and foreign customers for that matter in emerging markets, such that they will win these M&A mandates. Now, advisory competition worldwide balances these two forces, those large-scale gains endowed by the financial law of the jurisdiction where the advisors work, and advisors' own attempt to differentiate in the presence of this Goliath-like externality which imposes gains on all advisors, in particular international financial centers. Now, one of the most surprising factors that we find which explains or which determines the extent of the legal complexity externality and the effectiveness of advisors' differentiation are the quality of local law schools. And what we find is that in jurisdictions with relatively high-ranked law schools, we observe stronger, more positive impacts of legal complexity, and we observe advisors' differentiation strategies succeeding better than in other jurisdictions. Interestingly, we do not find this for economics and finance faculties. So law schools help to endow financial centers and non-financial centers with these sustainable competitive advantages, and we will be talking about that more in this presentation. And you might be asking, well, why did we look specifically at China's going out policy and the large wave of M&A transactions occurring from roughly 2000 to 2014? And the answer is that it provides a large amount of variation, a large amount of deal flow, which we can use in statistical analysis.